I'm excited to share with you another concept called the 0 point field. How hard is marriage? How hard is being in a relationship? How hard is it to maintain that and manage that? How hard is it to be perfect and happy in everything? Every job has its pros and cons. Every relationship has its pros and cons. So relationships aren't always easy, but according to quantum physics, there's a book called Field Theory by Taggart that has some interesting concepts in it, and it talks about the 0 point field in that. And so I want to just share a little bit about that. If you think, how hard is it to drive a car? If you're driving a car, you're going along and you're driving that car, if you're going 20 miles an hour, it's really easy to steer. But if you're going 100 miles an hour, it's still easy to steer. But if you have any errors, it's easy to go way off track really fast. Think about the difference between 20 miles an hour and 100 miles an hour in a car. It makes a lot of difference. Going in an airplane or a jet, if you're in a jet and you just turn just slightly, just a little bit, how fast can one get way off course very quickly? And that's a similar thing in relationship as well. Okay, so in relationship, there's a thing called the 0 point field, and I want to get the whiteboard up here for that. And if I can explain it close enough, if you're a quantum physicist, please, I apologize in advance. But for all practical purposes, as an engineer would say, we can still have a discussion here. So 0 point field is when the yin and the yang of the universe is balanced. There's this point right here at the center of the zero, that's 0 point field, where everything is perfectly balanced. And with everything perfectly balanced, you have your yin and yang. And we've seen that yin and yang sign before, right? With 0 point field, when it comes to relationship, this is the point I wanted to make. Okay, so the physicists say that where this is perfectly balanced, if you took all the energy on this side and you reversed it to be on that side, so all of the arrows would be going the same direction, to take that out of balance, that potential energy is enough to vaporize the planet in less than a second. It's so fast because there's so much energy there. Okay, so with that perfect balance, somehow, and I don't know how they exactly do this, but what they can measure the input to this field. And by putting energy into this field here, then they can measure the energy out of the other side, because by pushing one, it goes out of balance, and they can measure how much energy there is to rebalance that, because the natural status of the universe is to be balanced. So when we put in here, do we get that out or do we get the full thing out? They can measure that. So however they did that, in whatever units of measure, they say if you have one man inputting the energy, one man, you get 1 unit out of that. Okay. If you have one woman inputting to that 0 point, you get 1 unit out of that. What becomes fascinating to me as a marriage counselor is that as you have 2 men inputting into, you get 1 unit out. If you have 2 women inputting into that, you get 1 unit out. And that really doesn't matter. You could have 3, 4, 5 men or 3, 4, and 5 women. You still only get 1 unit out. But here's the fascinating thing, is that if you have 1 man and 1 woman inputting, you get 3.2 units out. So that's the power of a man and woman together. There's more energy, and possibly more conflict as well. But even more fascinating to me is if you have one man and one woman in a committed relationship, okay? In a committed relationship, you get 6 units out. Okay, so one man and one woman, there it is. There's a way more potential energy in a marriage. And that's why, as a hypnotherapist, when I've worked with couples, I've come to appreciate that even though they may have lived together 5 or 10 or even 15 years together, and then they get married, then with that commitment of that marriage, the subconscious mind wakes up. And I believe this explains part of that, where there's more energy in that commitment of the relationship. And that's takes more commitment to maintain and manage that energy. I don't remember the study. I'd have to go look that up again, but there was a study in California where they interviewed individuals 6 months before they're married. Now, half the group were living together up to 5 years, and then in the other part of the group were not married, they were dating, they had their belief system to not live together until they got married. So in both cases, they took an inventory from these individuals of what it takes to have a successful marriage 6 months before marriage. And they wrote their list of what it takes. So then fast forward a year later, 6 months after marriage, they asked the same group, what does it take to have a successful marriage? In both cases, those who had lived together and those who didn't, the list after marriage was on average 3 times longer for those who had not lived together and for those who had lived together. Even though they'd lived together before, marriage brought more expectations and more feelings into the relationship after the marriage commitment. So this field theory and the 0 point, their 0 point field. Okay, that 0 point field there, there's more energy. So as with things in the other discussion that we talked about being unified as a team, there's more energy and more fight in a marriage if you're not in unison. If you're on the same goal, you have 6 times the energy and ability to accomplish than you can by yourself. That's why so much research, another topic, is that men and women live longer, are healthier overall, especially men, but there's more intimacy in a relationship with married couples, and the family is healthier and the community is healthier. There's lots of proven benefits from marriage, even though it's difficult. As we learn to manage that relationship, the good that comes out of that is so much more than can happen without that commitment. So I wish you all the best in managing your commitment, finding unity so you can go to that goal together and not be at odds with each other, but unifying your goals and working together. So that's 0 point field.